Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this combined executive member decision session this morning. My name's Councillor Katie Lomas, and I will be chairing the first 5 items on the agenda, after which I will hand over to my colleague, Councillor Pavlovic, who will chair the remainder of the items. And my apologies in advance, I will need to leave after item 5 because I have another meeting to get to. So that has covered the chairing arrangements, I believe. We don't have any apologies for absence because all of the exec members involved in the items on the agenda today are here. Do we have any declarations of interest from anyone? No. Excellent. So we move on to public participation. And at this point, I believe we have 2 members of the public wishing to speak. First, we have Flick Williams, who I believe is joining us remotely.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, Flick. As you know, you've got 3 minutes, and I'll leave it to you to make sure you finish on time.
I have some questions regarding the council tax support scheme in relation to ESA legacy claimants being transitioned onto universal credit, and would be grateful if officers can supply an answer either here or in writing. My research reveals the following. When you move from ESA to UC, your UC payment, including the LCWRA, limited capability for work-related activity element, will be treated as income for council tax reduction purposes. Unlike ESA, where certain components, such as the support group component, might be partially disregarded, universal credit is generally fully counted as income. If you confirm that is correct, then this suggests that those disabled people assessed as unfit to work by the DWP, who have received their migration notices recently, stand to have their CTR reassessed, resulting in a loss of council tax reduction with higher council tax bills to pay, this despite no change to their income or any other change of circumstances. And now to the politics of it. The council does have discretion as to how it administers the council tax reduction scheme, and different local authorities vary significantly in how they do so. So the preamble to the anti-poverty strategy about the council having no control over welfare benefits is not in fact true. In Annex A of this report, an overview of the impact of welfare reform shows clearly that the number of households worse off under universal credit is almost double that of those who are better off, and by a significantly larger amount of money. Of those worse off, just under a third are already in arrears. And here is the problem with initiatives like the Household Support Fund. Whilst additional financial help is always welcome, citizens have no idea when, or if indeed if, that extra support is coming. It moves away from an entitlement approach to social security to a discretionary one, making it even harder for people to plan and budget. This is a bitter irony, given the architect of the universal credit system, one Ian Duncan Smith, proclaimed it would make it easier for claimants to budget and manage money, when in many cases it does the exact opposite. It moves us away from a rights-based system to a charitable-based system at the discretion of those holding power to make funds available, largely, I believe, as a safety valve for mounting debt, rather than motivated by offering genuine financial relief for those in difficulty. And all the while, as claiming financial support becomes ever more complex, necessitating an army of welfare advisors, those disabled people assisting others to navigate a hostile, complicated system get castigated by national politicians as sickfluencers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Flick. And I know in there were essentially 2 elements, some quite technical questions about council tax support, which I'm just looking at officers, we may need to come back to you on some of the technicalities. And I know that you always prepare your comments carefully, and perhaps if you would be willing to email them to us, that will really help in getting specific answers, because I think that's probably something that many residents would want to hear about. So grateful for you to raise them. On the other issues, we'll reference those when we come to that item. But thank you very much for your comments. Our next public speaker is Denise Craghill. Denise, welcome. I know that you've got 3 minutes. Would you like a 30-second warning?
Yeah, why not? Yes, please.
Great, thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of York Green Party on agenda items 6 and 7. We sympathise with residents who can feel very uncomfortable when street drinking leads to loud, intimidating and sometimes violent behaviour, whether this is caused by groups of individual street drinkers or by stag and hen parties or by anyone else. This isn't what we want to see for our neighbourhoods or for our city centre. Being able to remove alcohol and quickly disperse such groups can be a useful power for the police to be able to use at times as one tool in the box to deal quickly with particular incidents and flashpoints. On that basis, we don't have a problem with consulting to extend these powers for a further 3 years, though we would have expected more supporting evidence and strategic purpose in the papers, showing how this fits with better joined up working between different police teams and with other agencies such as housing and homelessness, addiction and mental health services. We do have a problem, however, with the additional 3 powers proposed for the city centre. These are very badly written and fraught with lack of clarity, open to subjective interpretation, and with no assessment of the implications of implementing them. The word homeless appears nowhere in either paper, and yet the proposed new powers read as powers to drive all beggars, rough sleepers, and homeless people out of the city centre. What is the wording of the 3rd clause on loitering directed at, if not at street sleepers? Does the 1st clause on begging mean that all begging is banned, or only if it is causing alarm or annoyance to someone? Who decides what level of alarm or annoyance by whom justifies excluding someone from the city centre? Where is the city centre defined? What if that person lives in the city centre? Many do. It includes a homeless hostel. Where should they go if they can't return for 24 hours? Indeed, which parts of the city will beggars and street sleepers be displaced to? What defines a reasonable excuse to return? What is covered by loitering, and who defines what level of annoyance by anyone in the city centre is relevant? How far might the use of the power to stop loitering be extended in practice? These proposed additional powers are sweeping, thank you, badly defined and ill thought out, with potentially serious implications for human rights. We'd all like to see a city centre without beggars or rough sleepers, but this needs to be because there is no longer any reason for people to be rough sleeping or feeling that begging is their only option. Driving people out of the centre to other parts of the city doesn't sound like a solution. We need more positive and joined up approaches. Please do have a rethink on this, Councillor Pavlovic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denise, and I'm sure those comments will be addressed by Councillor Pavlovic and officers when those items are discussed. We move on then to item number 5, the Financial Inclusion and Welfare Benefits Outturn for 2024-25. And I know we've got Pauline and David here to present to us on that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm always delighted to present the Financial Inclusion and Welfare Benefits Outturn report because it gives us an opportunity to showcase what our teams combined with the community and voluntary sector have managed to achieve together over the last 12 months in what continues to be a challenging financial inclusion environment. Cost of living are continuing to increase and worsen for many residents, absolutely where we have discretion, just referring back to the residents' comments earlier on, we should look at the context behind what's happening in the city to exercise those discretions. As you say, Chair, we'll respond to the council tax technical question in writing. We do have some discretion around our council tax support scheme or reduction scheme. It's known by both terms, and we do have discretion around the Household Support Fund, soon to be called the Crisis and Resilience Fund. I just want to mention the recommendations in this report, which are to note the content and the progress that we've made over the last 12 months, and I'll just highlight some particular areas for you. But also the second recommendation is to ensure that when the Crisis and Resilience Fund comes in, that we can act quickly and swiftly to determine the scheme. So we've asked for delegations there for officers to proceed in consultation with yourselves to develop that scheme, and we will be mindful of the residents' comments when we are developing that scheme. But there is always a tension between a cash first and those more permanent solutions. We're hoping now the government will be funding us in the long term rather than short term, so we may be able to think about that carefully and bring back recommendations through that delegation for you to consider in the future. I also want to mention that what's missing this year is the housing element of the report, and that's because we now produce an annual landlord report in which we cover the financial inclusion activities of housing within that particular report. So it also mentions, before I move on to the draft strategy that a member of the public mentioned, and we encourage all residents to and partners to engage in the consultation on the draft strategy, which is looking at the short-term responsive solutions to the tackling poverty, talks about prevention activity that we can start in the short and medium term, but also the systemic change that we can address in the long term. And certainly when we're thinking about how we're working in neighbourhoods now, we are very much focused on that long-term system change around early intervention and prevention. So the bits I just want to highlight, which I could identify many, is particularly around paragraph 17 and the total grants that we've given out over the year that have absolutely been about cash first in residents' pockets, around the York Financial Assistance Scheme, our emergency scheme, the Household Support Fund grants, and the food and fuel voucher schemes. And you can see the significance of that figure there in terms of total spend. And what that means is that that funding has also gone into the York local economy in terms of continuing to provide good jobs for people. If we then move on to the other significant area of work that's taken place over the last 12 months is to use, if you look at paragraph 34 onwards, to use a data-led approach around particularly pension credit and ensuring that our residents who are entitled to benefits, particularly pension credits linked to the fuel allowance, is absolutely maximised. And I'm pleased to say, if you look at paragraph 38, that work, that targeted work, has resulted in a significant amount of residents being able to claim benefits, backdated benefits, and hopefully receive lifetime support of a considerable amount. And that work has been recognised, and the team have been nominated for an Institute of Revenues and Rating and Valuation Award, a shortlisted award, which is we'll hear about in the next couple of months, as a trailblazer for how we should use data to target that work. And Councillor Pavlovich was at the heart of pilot work, as with other councillors, that took place in Hull Road, that was, if you like, the early version of that targeted work, which has been really successful. I couldn't go without mentioning that one. And one or two other areas, the work of the welfare benefits officers, at paragraph 47, that again, similar amount has been brought into people's pockets within the city. And finally, I want to mention the innovative work that is ongoing with the university on a range of activities, not least, I have to mention the Poverty Truth Commission recommendation around our letters and accessibility of our letters, and the response that our residents have to some quite formal legislative-led letters, and we're working with residents on pilots to change that approach, and hopefully that will have some positive outcomes. So I guess over to David to add any more detail or anything that you want to highlight.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a few things kind of hidden in this report that isn't explicit but worth noting. I think you'll read in there the hard work that's gone in over recent years in the HAF projects during school holidays. We've had recently some statistical graphical data around what other authorities have done with their HSF funding, and probably 60 to 70% of authorities have just put that money into food for school holidays. Which we were doing back in the COVID days. We were putting money in there to make sure there was food across the school holiday window. But what that's allowed us to do, not only we've done it really, really successfully, but that means because we haven't done that with the HSF funding, probably over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had an additional £7 million because we've turned that the HSF funding into the direct cash payments, support for council tax, discretionary funds. We couldn't have done that if we just put that money straight into school meals at term time. So we both have got a very, very good review about HAF programme. It got children involved in activities, and at the same time, it meant that the other money could go to help people who were in poverty. At the same time, I think over this period now since 2020, going through these schemes, that partnership work between partners within CYC, so communities, welfare benefits, my adult side, housing has improved, that they're all pushing and working in the same direction, but also with our partners. We work closely, obviously, with CAY, but we've used partners in terms of using our lift data to pick up on pension credit. And provide data that allows them to go and target individual people in there. So it's really improved the take up. I think also you'll see that all the UC letters are out now. So every working age resident will be on UC by the end, or by March, I think, or the end of this financial year. I think it's been brought forward. And that links in really strongly, I think, with some of the digital inclusion work we're doing, because there are still a lot of people who are working age out there still struggle with digital, and the realities in the 21st century and the way the government's benefits work now. You need to be able to use digital platforms. I know the support you can get, but the more people who are able to do it that we can give support to and help teach them. So they're kind of all really, really interlinked in what we're trying to do. I also think that the financial inclusion steering group grants that are given helped complete that picture in supporting those initiatives and supporting the groups we already work with to help them with people with either special difficulties or dealing with debt, etc. There's a huge organisation in terms of those grants, the partners we work with, and everybody in Advice York. So it's not just what we do at the council, it's everybody who contributes to this, and it really benefits our residents. I think what I would say is that we are moving to the Crisis and Resilience Fund, and the government acknowledged that the benefits system is not, I don't know whether they actually use the term broken, but it doesn't work particularly well. Everything from the LHA rates to market, it doesn't work particularly well. And we are drip fed, even though this next grant's going to be 3 years, it is drip fed, and it's difficult for us to say, well, we'll have a scheme that will be really good for everybody, because it's really hard. We don't run the universal credit site scheme. We do get money, and in this case, I don't know what we'll get, but be aware that discretionary housing payments are going in there. It'll be less, I think, than what we got through HSF. And the difficulty in some of these and the challenges around it is that sometimes you can't. We make direct payments. Now we've got more data through our Lift platform, and we know who's claiming council tax support. We know who we now fed in benefits from adult social care, so debts, etc. So we know the people are struggling. We're able to target them. So we write to them directly. We try and get the money in their pockets. The discretionary funds that we usually have to set up with it, people do not come and ask. Yeah, some people do, but you do not get the response you think you will get. It's very hard to reach people out there who don't come and get it. So a lot of our approach has been about cash first. We know them. Let's put that money into their bank account. Let's give them that money to spend. That's the way that you should really do it, to empower the person rather than giving them a handout. You actually pay them some money. But you don't have enough money to pay them once a month, and we don't have the infrastructure to do that. So there are a lot of challenges around how we make these payments and make these discretionary payments. And I think just finally is a future challenge is, as I said, the Crisis and Resilience Fund is a holding fund which the government's realised they've got to put in. And it's more or less bringing back the old social fund, I think, in a way, for the next 3 years. But I still think in 3 years' time, they won't change the benefit system to the extent it's completely fixed, and therefore people won't come to us. And I think we also need to look at, the fact we don't know the implications yet of everybody going on to full UC, universal credit, but we do know that our council tax support numbers have dropped. So we're going to need to go out there and try and make sure that people who've gone onto universal credit are claiming their council tax support. And we're also seeing now that utility bills are going to increase higher than expected from October. And you've probably all seen, food inflation hitting again, given the climate change issues around the world. So it's not just the UK. So the background is we will get pretty a lot 3 years funding rather than 1 year's, but it probably won't be as much. But all these challenges coming down the road. But we've got a brilliant infrastructure in the city. So many people working so hard to get this out there and talking to people. We really should take credit for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to the teams of officers and partners right across the city who work hard in delivering all of these services. But I also want to note that nobody wants to be in a situation where funds like this are necessary. Nobody wants to live in a society where we have the scandal of people living in poverty, whether they work or don't work. It is a scandal, and it's further a scandal that we live in a system where profit and wealth hoarding is seen as far more important than ensuring a decent standard of living for everyone, and where the cost of living crisis is deepening because of situations that are beyond the control of us as a council, of the individuals who are caught up in it. And so these schemes are vital for making sure that we can provide some kind of safety net, however limited it is, for people who are suffering the impact of all of those things. I just want to note a couple of things. A special mention of the half holiday activity fund, managing to provide those schemes in a way that preserves dignity for people, offers activities that keep young people and children occupied during somewhat challenging summer holidays, and also provides food for those people who might otherwise struggle to have a balanced meals during out of school term time, I think is really good. And I know that other councils have struggled to deliver this fund, and instead have used, as you say, David, they've used the household support fund to directly provide that food. And it's great that we've been able to find creative ways of maximising the use of everything available to us to support the most number of people possible. And that is also due to some really excellent partnership work across the city. And I look forward to seeing how moving towards a more localised neighbourhood model of working really deepens that partnership working. And also wanted to highlight the holistic support that's given to people. It's not just about oh, you need some food, here's some food. It's also about, can we find direct and link you to support with the things that you're struggling with, whether that be claiming the all of the benefits you're entitled to, whether it be about debt management support, whether it be about digital exclusion issues and supporting people to make sure they can access everything they need to. All of those things are so vital and so important. And I'm really proud of the team for the work they've done in making it such a holistic package of support. And that only happens when you are responsive to needs, when you listen to people, and when you are out in the community working with everybody right across the board. It is difficult that we still don't know what the Crisis and Resilience Fund will look like, or how we will be able to use that to support residents in future. And I look forward to officers coming up with, as I know they will, very creative and careful solutions that really will meet the needs of York residents in the best way possible. I'm pleased to hear that there's some work that will be going on to look at the impact of the transfer to universal credit for residents in York, because I know that's something that a lot of people have been really concerned about over time. And just to note again, thank you for offering to answer those technical questions about council tax support, because I think that'll be something that a lot of people will be concerned about. The benefit system that we've got, yes, broken, but one of the most complicated systems I've ever encountered. And for people who have no option but to navigate it, you know, it's great that we know that there's help available through the council and through partners right across the city for people that need it. Any questions, Councillor Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lomas, and thank you for officers for presenting it. I think as Exec Member for Children's, it'd be wrong if I didn't mention holiday activity food programme, as the summer holidays have come crashing to an end, and everyone's back to September mode now. Lucky us. I think it's worth noting in the report, paragraph 64, you know, Easter 2024, a year ago, obviously, York doubled the national average. Summer 2024, York doubled the national average. Christmas 2024, York doubled the national, well, more than doubled the national average reach for families. So we are, as an authority, doing great work in actually connecting different organisations with families who really need that support. And that has huge implications, because yes, it's obviously providing an activity, it's providing food, it's a break from being in the house for some families, but also it's an opportunity for other individuals to see mum, dad, kids, everybody else, carers, foster carers, things like that, and link in with each other. So it's gone really, really well. It obviously has the other benefits that we've talked about that other authorities are not managing to maximise. So that's a real positive. And I just want to finish with the quote, actually, slightly further down in that section. As a parent, it's such a relief to have a place that I know I can take my kids over the holidays and know they are not only safe, but having a great time. My son made some new friends and said he couldn't wait to go again. There were so many great things over the summer, and my daughter signed up for a lot of different activities. She'd always wanted to try gymnastics, but the classes can be expensive. I love that this has given her a chance to try new things. Those summer, you know, my parents actually met running holiday camps and play camps back in the day, quite a long time ago now, obviously. But that was like a whole summer long program that was built for keeping people entertained, keep people engaged and active. And this is a small version of that, but we should really, really thank those organisations that are involved. So yeah, I'd just like to put on record my thanks to those organisations, but also to the officers who've brought everything together. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. So we'll move now to the recommendations at paragraph 9 on page 9. And we're asked to note and comment on, which I think we have the details of the report, and to delegate decision-making relating to the government's expected crisis and resilience fund to the Director of Finance in consultation with myself. And I'm very happy to propose that recommendation. We're both in favour, so that's marvellous. And I look forward to working with officers to see how we can really build on the success of what's been happening with the Crisis and Resilience Fund. And at that point, I'm going to hand over the chair to Councillor Pavlovic and, with my apologies, leave the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
So, thank you to David Walker and to Councillors Lomas and Webb, who've now left. We'll now move on to agenda item 6, which is the public space protection order within the city walls. I've got Pauline Suchfield and Paul Morrison. Before you start speaking, if you could just give your job titles. Hand over to you.
Certainly, thank you, Chair. I'm Pauline Stutchfield and I'm Director of Housing and Communities, newly responsible for community safety. I'm delighted to say perfect fit for our services, and I look forward to looking towards the implementation of this work. I do want to respond to the Green Party comments. Thank you very much. And I think we need to reflect that this is within the strategic context of we also have a homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, and we also are developing a neighbourhood model in the city that will wrap around our residents who, for whatever reason, either are homeless or at risk of homeless. And the aim of that strategy is to make homelessness rare, brief and non-recurring, and very much based on the pathways that we have and are developing in a multidisciplinary way. And both of those strategies, the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy and the neighbourhood model, are based on being person-centred. And we will wrap around the person, build on their strengths so that they don't feature in our future figures around homelessness and rough sleeping. And that work is ongoing. It's very much a prevention and early intervention approach, but they're key to preventing homelessness. This is a different response to that challenge. I won't go into the technical details. I've got an expert sat next to me, but I think it's important to understand the timetable around this. We're talking about a 4-week consultation and bringing back the conclusions around that with more of the detail that was requested by the member of the public in terms of the supporting evidence behind the decisions that will be recommended, hopefully in November later on this year.
Thank you.
So if I can hand over to Paul.
Thank you. And Paul, and thank you, Pauline. And you're absolutely right in making reference to the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, which I know that Denise is aware of. Paul, when you introduce the details, can you explain the rationale and why this has come forward with an extension but with additional powers? But introduce yourself first.
My name is Paul Morrison. I'm the Community Safety Manager within the Antisocial Behaviour Hub at the Council. So in terms of the report, it is to agree to a public consultation about potential extension of the current public space protection order. This first report is around what's happening inside the city walls, and there's then another report coming up next around the areas just outside around Union Terrace and some of the associated areas around there. So in terms of sort of why we are looking at kind of slightly extending it, I think because of the fact that obviously York traditionally this within the city centre, it's always faced quite a lot of different issues.
Sorry, I'm just going to hold you there. Denise, can you hear? Do you want to come and sit at the table? Because I can see you trying to make notes.
Sorry, you tend to talk it up that way, don't you?
Yes, exactly.
Sorry,
exactly what
it's not a deliberate
thinking.
thing, but I was just. So in terms of the city centre, obviously it's always traditionally faced quite a lot of different groups of people using it. You know, residents, visitors, and within that there are people that come in for different things. We've always had issues around people street drinking, begging, loitering, and things like that cause issues for other residents, and the kind of the two can sometimes clash at different times of the day, particularly those kind of crossover periods around different sort of groups coming and going. I think that North Yorkshire Police have recently got new kind of senior officers who have come from different backgrounds and different areas, where they have broader public safety protection orders in place than the ones within York. I think they're keen to kind of use the PSPOs as a kind of way to kind of help, you know, to run and administer the city centre and to try to stop some of the issues and problems from occurring. And I think that's sort of it's a part of the background there in terms of why we're kind of looking at that. I think in terms of the public space protection order, this is the consultation. It is around trying to kind of establish what people are, what people would like, what people would support, and to sort of come forward with some different solutions. Once that's done, obviously we would then be looking at getting that okay by our legal department in terms of making sure that we comply with the criteria around that. The reports that the suggestions that have been there have been pulled from some different public space protection orders, which is why they are slightly legalese, if you like to use that kind of phrase, around terms of talking about loitering, no person shall loiter. It's taken from other organisations, public SPOs that they have in place. I think that there is an issue around people returning within 24 hours if they're asked to leave, as was raised by Denise. I think that when we've had discussions with the police, I think they currently already use directions to leave, and it would just be an extension of that. So potentially they'll be looking at within areas within that. So whether that's around kind of particular hotspots within the city centre necessarily rather than the whole city centre. But that's obviously part of some of the things we'd have to kind of iron out in terms of making sure that our legal are happy with the wording of anything that is looked to be included within the kind of the second report and therefore within the PSPO itself.
Thank you. And I saw in some of the media reporting, and I think it may have been a misprint, but we're not talking about evicting homeless people from York.
No, obviously we couldn't evict homeless people from York around there anyway. It would be around potentially depending on because it's not necessarily these bits necessarily targeting anything that are aimed at homeless people per se. It may be some things that homeless people may do sometimes, but it's also done by other people as well at times. So I do want to kind of stress that it's not aimed at particularly at targeting homeless people for being homeless. However, it is aimed at stopping some of the things that occasionally are done by both homeless and non-homeless people. But there's no about evictions and things like that. If it was the direction to leave, that would only be for a period of 24 hours, and that the police have and use those powers now. It's just a way of making it a little bit easier because currently they have to be signed off by an inspector or above to get those things implemented. And this way, it's just means that there is a little bit of a smoother operation for them.
And one of the one of the issues that we as a local authority, but also as the police, also as a bid, the York bid, and Make It York, as well as individual shopkeepers and residents, are understandably concerned by street drinking and aggressive behaviour. And we've seen, sadly, in recent months, that there has been an increase in city centre antisocial behaviour. So the reason that this is coming as a request for a consultation, and I really do want to stress this to Denise, to the Green Party, and indeed to anybody else, is, please engage with the process. If you're supportive of it, if you're against it, if you're supportive of it in part. The point of consultations is that you learn. If there was no interest in getting the feedback, then we'd just come and make a decision, and this wouldn't be a request for a consultation. So we certainly don't use consultations as a, how can I put it, fig leaf for making a decision. It's a genuine offer to engage with organisations, with individuals, and with other political groupings. So how are you planning to advertise this? How's it going to go out? Where can people access it?
Sorry.
Go on.
Just,
no,
we will be looking to run the consultation through SurveyMonkey. It will be publicised through the comms team, and I'm happy to go and attend, which I have done previously, things like RAs and other kind of groups that are within the area that are affected, to talk through this and to kind of give that advice. If people aren't able to do it online, then we will have some paper copies that we can send out to people.
Good.
Just to kind of make sure that we kind of are offering that to as wide a group as possible. And I would like to reiterate, what you've just said about, obviously the more people that complete the consultation, I think the better it would give us an idea in terms of what people would like to move forward.
And and if we could, is it possible? I genuinely don't know the answer to this, so that's why I'm asking. Is it possible to ask people like the bid or others to distribute it within their
I'm happy,
their email chains?
They've got emails. They can put the links through. It'll just be like a little web link or whatever and stuff, and they can embed that. I'm sure if they're sending newsletters out or on their email list and things. And if we are doing this as a press release, can we ask whether the press release can attach a link? We can ask them to do that. Obviously, it will depend in terms of what the press publish. But hopefully they will. And then they can just click on that and go straight. Because I think the last consultation that we did on a similar issue, on a similar PSPO, I think we had over 1,000 responses, which was another relatively short consultation, but it really did generate. I think that was around street urination and keeping dogs under control and dog fouling. So, I'm very much hopeful that as many people as can do engage with this process, and that the next paper that comes will come with a series of recommendations with the feedback from those consultations. Fantastic. So the recommendation for agenda item 6 is on page 72 of the agenda, paragraph 8. And it's recommended that the executive member approve the decision to consult with the public and partners on the extension of the PSPO, which would ensure that the council have greater powers to deal with antisocial behaviour within the city walls, including the following possible options the council could consider.
a ban on drinking alcohol within the area, the ability to remove large groups of 3 or more people who are causing antisocial behaviour for both sites. That's agenda item 7 as well. Begging, no person shall make any verbal, non-verbal or written request for money, donations or goods, including the placing of hats, clothing or containers, so as to cause or is likely to cause harassment, alarm, distress or annoyance. With no return within 24 hours if asked to leave, the person shall, after being requested to leave by an authorised officer due to them behaving in a manner likely to cause harassment, alarm, distress, nuisance or annoyance to any person within the city centre without reasonable excuse, remain or return to the city centre within a period of 24 hours. And no loitering, no person shall loiter, sit or lay on the floor or on temporary structure or adjacent to doorways or around pay machines in a manner causing or likely to cause harassment, alarm, distress, nuisance or annoyance by any person within the city centre. I would just like to say before I agree that Denise is absolutely right and is we shouldn't have to do that. People shouldn't have to beg. They shouldn't have to be homeless. That's why we're developing strategies. That's why Pauline talked about the wraparound support that we're going to put in place. We want to make the circumstances in which that is necessary unnecessary. And these powers may, in some way, also encourage people to seek out support. So I'm happy to agree that recommendation, and there will be another report. And just to stress, please do engage with the consultation. Denise, you're happy to, are you happy to stay for the next agenda item as well, which is on a similar matter but related to the Groves? Yes. I'm going to hand over to you. I know that we've already covered a lot of the issues, but specifically around the Groves and Union Terrace and Clarence Street areas. So who wants to lead on this? Pauline.
Yes, just briefly, without repeating what I said on the last report, but it's very similar, but obviously the focus here around these very visible areas of the city, often the first area that some people see of the city when they come here. It's a particular focus on ASB and drinking, particularly by groups of people. So the recommendation very much focuses around that. But again, it's consultation to open up wider considerations, and you're asked to approve a similar set of recommendations, but with perhaps a narrower focus on this occasion.
Is there anything you would need to add, Paul?
No, not an awful lot really more. Obviously, as was just sort of said, Union Terrace particularly has got high profile. When we looked at introducing this last time, I think people within the Groves were concerned around the kind of potential for people to kind of move outside and for things to be just slightly shifted, and that's why the Groves are then included within that and remained within this area now. It is something that historically there has been sort of peaks and troughs of around, particularly around the summer months. As ever with street drinking, things tend to be worse in the summer. And I think it's just really designed as a tool to allow both the council and the police just to kind of try to keep on top of this process, these issues and these problems.
So was there previously a PSPO around Union Terrace and yes. So this is an extension to incorporate the Groves.
No, that is the property safety protection will last for a period of 3 years, which is just expiring, and therefore they're looking.
So it's an extension.
So it's an extension, and the area would remain the same. Although,
and I know the Guildhall councillors have written in, and I would encourage the Guildhall councillors, along with anybody else, to again engage in the consultation, which I'm presuming will be in a similar format. It will be the
same, yes.
And I'm not sure whether the bid cover anything outside of the city walls. I suspect they don't. So it might just be worthwhile just trying to engage with those organisations that are working in and around.
We have spoken briefly with Terrace themselves, and the Residents Association of the Groves. I've advised I'm happy to come to one of their meetings and things like that and talk through that as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a very strong, very cohesive residents association within the Groves, who I work with quite closely, and as I know the other councillors do. But there's also the church on Lowther Street that run a coffee morning. And it might just be worth asking them if they want to put up a poster or something like that, just to get this as widely known about as we possibly can. So the recommendation is on page 80, paragraph 10. It's recommended that the executive member approve the decision to consult with the public and partners on the extension of the PSPO, which would ensure that the council would have greater powers to deal with antisocial behaviour in these areas, including the following possible options the council could consider. A ban on drinking alcohol within the area. I'm assuming that's drinking alcohol in public.
Yes.
In the area.
Yes,
if we start knocking on doors and saying you can't have your evening glass of wine, I think we'll be in trouble. And the ability to remove large groups of 3 or more people who are causing antisocial behaviour for the site. So in a similar way to the others, but we might just want to amend that bullet point to include in public.
Yeah.
So on those terms, I'm happy to agree that, and this again will come back probably at the same agenda item as the other one. There are no items of any other or urgent business. Therefore, at 7 minutes to 11. I'll call this meeting to a close. Thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you, Denise.